Good day, beautiful people, and welcome to my podcast, Life Treasures and Golden Moments. This is Natalie Silva. To my people that listen to me all the time, I'm sorry I haven't been on board the last month or so, but I got caught with that little virus that's been going around, and I didn't have a voice for about 3 weeks. But I'm going to make up for it tonight, and first of all, I want to wish you all a belated Happy Hanukkah and a belated Merry Christmas. In 2 more days, we'll be saying Happy New Year. So before the year's over, I wanted to share some stories with you about the best advice I ever heard. And there's some stories that were written by various authors from this book that I found. And I think that you will enjoy them today. It's about advice that people have given to someone, a friend, or to somebody listening, a stranger, or whatever. Have you ever run into someone that says something to you that you don't think too much about, and later on it makes your thought process change and you make a decision on that advice? Sometimes it helps to point somebody in the right direction or help solve a problem or change the path of a life a person chooses. Years ago, I love baseball, and I went to a ball game, and there was a gal. She was quite the sports fan. She was up in the audience there, and the two teams were playing, and the pitcher kept throwing the ball to the batter, and the batter wouldn't hit any of the balls. And she kept saying, "What do you want? What do you want?" Hollering to the batter. And I got to thinking about that. That's like in life, too. What do you want? You have to think about those things. So today I'd like to start off with a story called Living Fully. And what would you do if you ever won the lottery? And this was authored by J.C. Sullivan. I think you'll enjoy it. Louise L. Hay once said, "Life is a lottery that we already have won, but most people have not cashed in their tickets yet." I hated my job. All I did was complain about it. One day I was whining about work to my brother. I had no idea what I want to do. I can't stand banking. He had heard enough of my complaining. He responded in the clearest, most life-changing question I'd ever heard. "Imagine that you just won the lottery. What would be the first thing you do?" Without thinking, I blurted out, "Oh my God, move to Italy." That had always been a dream of mine since childhood, but I hadn't thought about it in years. After all, I had my good job. With all my debt, I couldn't even afford to take a staycation, much less contemplate something as glorious as moving to Italy. What a fantasy. Italia. The architecture, the towns. I thought about all the mouth-watering food I would eat there. I imagined sending my boss a letter of resignation in Italian from Italy. My brother brought me back to earth. "Then do it. Move. I'm sick of hearing that you hate your job. I'll come visit." "I don't have the money, and I don't speak Italian." My brother was relentless. "JC, if you wait until you learn the language, you'll never do it. Every day, someone else is moving there and living your dream. Money or lack of thereof has always been your obstacle. Why are you letting it hold you down?" I explained about my pile of debt and my responsibilities. "Well then, do whatever it takes and get out of debt," my brother responded reasonably. "Start saving. Focus on moving to Italy." I did it. I put aside my fear about the money, and I concentrated on what I would do if I hadn't had to worry about money. I set a goal. I would move to Milan before the end of the year. Then I threw myself into paying off debt. I stopped spending money on anything but essentials, and I canceled my magazine subscriptions, cable TV, and even my Tony Health Club membership. I stopped going out for meals and bought lunch to the office every day. Importantly, I also took daily steps to help me concentrate on my end goal. A picture of Italy went on my desk at work to remind me of my dream. I had an espresso, an Italian restaurant, and met Italians who gave me fabulous travel advice. Library books were great resources, as was talking to everyone I knew who had been there for their suggestions. Those positive actions changed it from being a dream to becoming that much closer to a reality. It worked. I paid off my debt and managed to move to Italy with $1,200 in my pocket, more than I'd ever had saved. I had no idea what would happen, what would be better than the life I'd been living in Los Angeles, a bored, stressed-out, debt-ridden banker. My imaginary lottery win forced me to listen to my inner voice, and the imaginary lottery ticket turned out into a real plane ticket. Sean had said the magic words. He had never occurred to me before that I could remove my money as the impediment to living the life I wanted. It was a turning point in my life, and since then I had continued to travel the world. My time in Italy taught me I could do whatever I wanted if I put it into effort. Living in another country was never as scary again. I knew that when I grew tired of it, I could return home. A few years later, I lived in France and made incredible friends for life. I learned so much. Knowing how to speak French helps me at the oddest times. Then I discovered hostels. Their flexibility let someone else handle the electricity, gas-related responsibilities, maid service, I hate doing laundry, and sense of community, amazing travel tips, and fabulous excursions. Hosteling, you often can do it for just a few days or a long period of time. Lets you sample different cities without tying yourself to a lease. Hostels are furnished, so when you leave, you simply grab your bag and you're on your way. When hosteling, you simply grab your bag and you're on your way, and my friends prefer to rent private rooms. I do dorm rooms, but either way, it's fun. That's how I lived in Colombia and Argentina. All this happened thanks to a simple but life-altering question from my brother. To this day, when I need to make an important decision, I take money out of the equation. My journey is global, but now I'm back in LA and working as an actress. When I accept a role, I write down the reason I'm doing it. And you know what? It is never about the money. So that's how she made her decision about the lottery. The next story I'm going to share is something about following your heart. And the author is Diana Lynn, and the title of the story is What I Deserve. One of the most beautiful qualities of true friendship is to understand and to be understood. Is Rob coming? One of my friends asked over the loud music pumping through the club. The whole group of girlfriends at our table turned and looked at me. They waited for my answer. In my heart, I knew he wasn't coming, but I found myself saying, maybe later. My friends smiled sweetly and said, let's go dance. I knew what they were all thinking, but no one said a word. I've been dating Rob for a few months. He was funny, cute, and kind. He had so many great qualities, but nailing down a time to see him was nearly impossible. He'd say things like, my work is so unpredictable. I might have the kids this weekend. I'm not sure, but I might be going out of town. He never really knew what he did when he'd be free. I wanted to believe him. As the night went on, I grew increasingly more doubtful that he'd show up. Finally, the dreaded text came. I'm sorry, can't make it tonight. The kids are coming over. My heart sank again. I found myself torn. He was a hard-working single dad. It was one of my favorite things about him. He was there for his kids. His whole life was about his girls. How could I get mad at him for that? I tried to tell myself, see him when you see him. Enjoy time with him. When it comes, go on with your life. If he comes, he comes. But the truth is, it made me feel unimportant. If he really liked me, he'd make the time. If he really cared, he'd find a way. If he wanted to see me, he would. Each time I'd get the last-minute excuse, my heart would break a little more. Each cancellation was a little dig at my self-esteem. I left the club feeling dejected. I can't keep waiting for this guy. In my head, I knew it. I just couldn't convince my heart. The following weekend was my girlfriend Lindell's birthday. A few girls got together to surprise her with a weekend getaway. We rented a condo in Friday Harbor. It's a sleepy little town, but it's beautiful. The perfect place to go with friends for quality time. And it was a welcome distraction from my boy problems. We got into town, went out to dinner, and returned to our condo, where we drank wine, played games, and danced around the living room to our favorite songs. One by one, our friends went to bed. Finally, it was just me and Liddell and me. She looked at me as if she were reading my mind. "What's up with Rob?" she said. "I don't know. Nothing," I said. "Do you want to know why I married Jason?" she said. "Sure, why?" "He shows up," she said. I wanted to cry. She continued, "He shows up. When he says he's coming, he comes. When I need him, he's there. He shows up." She looked at me lovingly and said, "You deserve that too." I'll never forget the look on her face, the way she made me feel that night. The love and kindness of her words melted my heart. I got it. I got it so clearly. You deserve a guy who shows up. She could have said Rob was a jerk. She could have said, "Don't put up with his wishy-washy crap." But instead, she simply told me why she picked her husband. He shows up. It seems obvious, so obvious. But in the middle of it, I couldn't see clearly. I just felt confused. I felt my own self-esteem slipping away. But that's the thing about good friends. They won't let that happen. When I go back to town, I ended things with Rob. That night, a good friend taught me that I deserve someone who shows up, and now I know I will not settle for anything less. So follow your heart, folks. The last story I'd like to share today, since my voice is starting to leave me again, is called Be the Duck. Rule number 1 is don't sweat the small stuff. Rule number 2 is it's all small stuff. The author of that was Robert Elliott. Sometime I'd like to share his book and his story. There's a movie about him. Wonderful man. He wrote a book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And he died at a very young age. But what beautiful advice he had in there. So sometime when I'm doing my podcast, I'm going to share some stories from him that you will really enjoy. Anyhow, so here is Be the Duck. "You should never play poker," said my friend Anna Maria, stepping through the front door. "Poker?" I asked. "What brought that to mind?" Anna Marie popped herself down on the couch. "Your face shows too much emotion. You couldn't bluff your way out of a paper bag." Attempting to change the subject, I asked, "Would you like some coffee?" "Sure thing," she replied. "And then we're going to talk about that beaten dog look in your eyes." I went into the kitchen, poured 2 cups, and returned to the living room. I sat 1 cup down on the coffee table in front of her. "Hey, look," I said cheerfully. "We're actually using the coffee table for coffee." "Nice try," said Anna Maria. "But you're not getting out of that easy." She cocked an eyebrow. "So what's up?" I sighed. Anna Marie had been my friend my entire life. We'd grown up together, gone to college together, and now lived in homes just walking distance apart. She knew me better than anyone else on the planet. Honestly, I don't know where to begin. I shrugged my shoulders and avoided her glance. Everything seems to be coming at me all at once. It's like I can't do anything right at work. I'm feeling overwhelmed, and the pressure just makes me want to scream. She took a sip of coffee. "Is any of it your fault?" "My fault? Is there anything specific you can do about the situation on the pressures you're experiencing?" I thought for a moment, then shook my head slowly. "Well, no, it's pretty much all out of my control." "Then be the duck," said Anna Marie. Matter-of-factly, "The duck?" "The duck," she repeated. "Ducks don't worry about adverse weather. They just let the rain roll off their backs. If you approach your problems like a duck approaches the weather, you let them just roll off your back too." "You think it's that simple?" I asked with skepticism. Be the duck, she replied, with a knowing nod. Don't let your feathers get ruffled. Just let it roll right off your back. Then, changing the subject abruptly, she asked to see my new cell phone. It's smarter than I am, I said, as I handed it to her. Anna Maria, a whiz at keeping up with technology, quickly pushed a few buttons on it and handed it back to me. Nice. I eyed her suspiciously. What did you just do? She smiled, perhaps a bit too broadly. I just set it to remind you to be the duck. Oh, but I don't know how to retrieve my notes or reminders yet, I admitted. Don't worry, she said, settling down her empty coffee cup and starting for the door. It's not that type of a reminder. I didn't understand what she meant, but I refrained from asking any more dumb-sounding questions. I bid her goodbye, gathered our coffee cups, and headed for the kitchen. Quack, 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 quack. What in the world? Stopping in my tracks, I turned to see where all the quacking was coming from and burst out laughing. Anna Marie had changed my ringtone to that of a quacking duck. I picked up the phone, slid the arrow across, and answered without hesitation. You come right back here and fix it this instant. Be the duck, she exclaimed joyfully. Now you'll be reminded every time your phone rings, at least until you figure out how to change the ringtone to do something else. I growled something about how I eventually would get even with Miss Smarty Pants and hung up. That was 3 years ago. My ringtone, although I now know how to change it, remains the same. Love it, absolutely. So be the duck. Let things roll off your back and keep on going. Well, folks, I hope you have a wonderful evening and a wonderful rest of the 2022, which is 2 more days, and a happy new year coming up, and I hope it's the best year you ever had. And I'll be back with you with some new stories starting in 2023. You all take care, stay well, and may God bless. Until next time, this is Natalie Silva with Life Treasures and Golden Moments.